Let me tell you a story about the most expensive cup of coffee you'll never drink. It wasn't a $20 artisan brew from some boutique roaster. It was a $3.50 regular coffee, paid for with a credit card you didn't fully pay off that month. A decade later, if left entirely to the dark, silent arithmetic of your cardholder agreement, that single forgotten transaction could have generated a cost exceeding $300. And you never even got the caffeine. This is not a market parable or a hypothetical scare tactic. This is the hidden physics of modern consumer finance. My name is Michael, and through Credit Comeback Stories, I have witnessed this precise mathematical tragedy unfold countless times. We do not merely discuss credit repair. We excavate the foundational traps so you can walk free of them permanently. Our journey begins with an illusion, one so comforting it disarms our most critical instincts, the illusion of manageable debt. Consider the case of Sarah, a client whose story is a perfect archetype. Sarah was a certified public accountant, a professional whose entire career was built on understanding numbers, forecasting, and control. She budgeted with color-coded spreadsheets, tracked her net worth quarterly, and considered herself financially literate. One January, her statement reflected a $200 balance from holiday gifts. It was a conscious decision, she reasoned. She had received a substantial bonus scheduled for mid-February. The rational choice, according to her spreadsheet, was to make the minimum payment, a mere $25 that month, and eradicate the full balance when her bonus arrived. It was a temporary bridge, a strategic use of credit. What could possibly go wrong with a $200 balance? This is the first and most potent bait, the psychological threshold of insignificance. The human mind is not naturally equipped to process exponential growth. We think in linear terms. A $200 debt feels like a static object, a boulder we can push aside when we are ready. We fail to perceive it as a living seed, already planted in the fertile, compounding soil of our credit agreement. Sarah viewed the minimum payment as a convenient parking fee for her debt. She did not understand it was the calculated admission price to a theater where the main performance was the erosion of her financial resolve. The minimum payment is arguably the most ingenious and misunderstood feature of modern credit. It is not a designed path to solvency. It is a carefully calibrated instrument for sustained profitability. By presenting a figure that is often less than 2% of the principal balance, it creates a powerful, deceptive anchor. It resets our perception of the debt's size and threat level. When the required payment is only $25, the $200 principal begins to feel less urgent. It morphs from a debt into a monthly bill, psychologically categorized alongside utilities or streaming subscriptions. This recalibration is catastrophic. It transforms a financial emergency into an administrative routine. Furthermore, this system exploits a cognitive bias known as present bias. We heavily discount future costs in favor of present convenience. The immediate benefit of holding on to an extra $175 in February feels tangibly good. The abstract, future cost of paying an additional $40 in interest over the next year feels meaningless. The minimum payment framework actively encourages this short-term thinking by making the alternative, paying in full, feel like an unnecessary sacrifice of liquidity. Sarah executed her plan. She paid the $25 in January. When her bonus arrived in February, a minor car repair presented itself, a more immediate, legitimate need. The credit card balance, now sitting at $180 after her payment, and the addition of new interest still seemed benign. It was, after all, less than it was last month. The minimum payment dropped slightly. The illusion of progress was intoxicating. She made the minimum payment again. By March, the original $200 balance, now fused with new interest and a few additional small purchases, had quietly rebounded to $210. The descent had begun, not with a crash, but with a whisper. This is the silent spiral. It is not driven by profligate spending or financial illiteracy in the classic sense. It is engineered by a misalignment between human psychology and financial product design. The small balance is the entry point. The minimum payment is the anesthetic. The patient, your financial future, is already on the operating table, unaware that the procedure is not a cure, but a perpetual condition. Sarah's story is not one of failure, but of an intelligent person operating with an incomplete map. She understood interest as a concept, but not as a continuous daily force. She saw her calendar of monthly bills, but was blind to the bank's compounding clock, which ticks relentlessly every single day, from the moment a transaction posts until the balance reaches zero. She had poured water on what she thought was a dormant seed, only to later discover it was a hybrid species designed to grow faster than her ability to prune it. Her awakening came later, when a routine review of her annual statements revealed she had paid over $400 in interest and fees on various small balances over 2 years, with nothing to show for it. The coffee, the forgotten meal, the online subscription that auto-renewed, these insignificant ghosts had formed a significant phantom army, draining her resources. The shock was not in the total amount, but in the aggregation of invisibility. No single decision felt catastrophic. The catastrophe was the sum of 1,000 unexamined assumptions. This is the foundational truth we must confront. In the realm of revolving credit, there is no such thing as a small balance. There are only balances that are either actively being extinguished or actively being grown by the immutable laws of compound interest. The first step in any comeback story is to recognize that you are not in a static state of debt, but on a trajectory. Sarah was on a downward trajectory, masked by the comforting monthly ritual of a minimum payment. She did not know she had just poured fertilizer on a weed. Now, we descend from the realm of psychology into the cold, precise machinery that gives that whisper its power. If the small balance is the seed and our behavioral bias is the water, then what we explore now is the genetically modified, hyper-efficient soil in which it is planted, the legal and mathematical architecture of your credit card agreement. The central and often catastrophic misunderstanding lies in a single universal phrase: the average daily balance method. Most consumers conceptualize interest as a monthly charge, a simple percentage applied to whatever is left over at the end of the billing cycle. This is a profound and costly error. Interest is calculated daily, and the grace period, that mythical land of free credit, dissolves the moment you carry a balance from a previous statement. Here is the mechanism, stripped bare. Your billing cycle closes on, say, the first of the month. Your statement arrives showing a $500 balance from last month's purchases. On the 10th, you make a new $50 purchase for gasoline. On the 20th, you make a payment of $500, believing you have cleared your balance. Intuitively, you assume you will owe interest only on any remaining amount. The reality is different. The issuer calculates your average daily balance for the entire cycle. For days 1 to 9, your balance was $500. For days 10 to 19, after your gas purchase, your balance was $550. For days 20 to 30, after your payment, it was $50. They sum these daily totals and divide by the number of days in the cycle. In this scenario, your average daily balance is not $0, nor the $50 you ended with, but a figure likely around $350. Your annual percentage rate is then applied to this average, not the ending balance. You will owe interest on money you have already paid back. This is the "but I paid it" trap, and it is the cornerstone of how small balances persist and grow against our best efforts. This leads to the second critical mechanism, the forfeiture of the grace period. The grace period is not a benevolent right. It is a conditional privilege. It applies only if you paid your previous statement balance in full and on time. The moment you fail to do so, the moment you let a small balance revolve, you lose the grace period on all new purchases. They begin accruing interest immediately from the date of transaction. There is no interest-free interval. Your new coffee purchase is no longer a simple transaction. It is an immediate interest-bearing loan. This creates a perverse fusion. Your old, carried balance now acts as a poison, tainting every new dollar you spend, pulling it instantly into the compound interest vortex. To understand the potential of this system, one can briefly consider the ghost of a policy known as two-cycle billing. While largely obsolete due to regulatory changes, its logic is illuminating. Under two-cycle billing, if you did not pay two consecutive statements in full, the issuer could calculate interest based on the average daily balance from the two previous cycles, not just the current one. This meant even if you paid a balance down to zero, you could still be charged interest for the prior period you had carried it. The spirit of this approach, maximizing the principal upon which interest is calculated, remains embedded in the architecture. It reveals a fundamental design principle. The system is optimized to find and capitalize on every possible day a dollar can be considered borrowed. Now, let us confront the APR illusion. We see a figure like 19.99% and process it annually as a linear cost. But with daily compounding, the effective annual rate is higher. More critically, we fail to translate it into the tangible cost of delay. A 19.99% APR translates to a daily periodic rate of approximately 0.0548%. On a sustained $200 balance, that is about 11 cents per day. Seemingly insignificant, but that 11 cents is added to the principal the next day. Over a month, the interest charge is about $3.30. If only the minimum payment is made, a significant portion of that payment services only this newly minted interest, not the original $200. The principal remains largely intact, ready to generate another 330/30s next month, and the next. The balance is not a static object being chipped away. It is a generator, producing a monthly interest obligation that must be satisfied before any real progress can begin. Finally, we must account for the sneak attack of fees. A late payment fee or an overlimit fee is not merely a penalty, it is a capital event. These fees are added directly to your principal balance. That $39 late fee becomes part of the $200. The very next day, the daily periodic rate is applied to $239, not $200. The engine now has more fuel. It compounds faster. A single misstep does not just incur a penalty, it enlarges the furnace itself. This is the compound engine. It is not malicious in intent, it is algorithmic in execution. It is a closed system designed to monetize time and human inconsistency. Sarah's $200 balance was not sitting in a vault. From the day it appeared on her statement, it was placed on a conveyor belt moving through this engine. The average daily balance method ensured every day it remained was counted. The loss of her grace period meant any new purchase, however essential, was immediately fed onto the same belt. The APR defined the speed of the conveyor. Her minimum payment was barely enough to keep the items on the belt from piling up at the end, but it did nothing to stop the belt itself. Understanding this mechanism is the moment of clarity. It transforms debt from a vague moral failing into a technical problem. The shock is not that the system exists, but that its operations are so perfectly obscured by the mundane rhythm of monthly statements. We are not fighting a monster. We are reverse engineering a machine. And once you see the gears, the daily averaging, the conditional grace period, the fee-fueled principal growth, you can begin to identify the precise points where you can insert a wrench. This engine hums beneath the hood of every card with a carried balance. But knowledge of the machine, while vital, is incomplete. The contract is one thing, a document of cold arithmetic. The mechanical engine is another, a predictable, if ruthless system. But what if I told you the most sophisticated component in this entire apparatus is not found in any bank server room, but inside your own skull? The most potent fuel for the compound engine is not money. It is the inherent wiring of the human mind, a suite of cognitive biases and emotional shortcuts that modern credit has been perfectly architected to exploit. To combat debt, we must first understand that our brains are not naturally equipped for the financial landscape we inhabit. We evolved for immediate, tangible rewards and threats, not for abstract, future mathematical consequences. This mismatch creates systematic vulnerabilities. The first is the neuroeconomics of payment. When you hand over physical cash, your brain registers a tangible loss. Functional MRI studies have shown this activity lights up areas associated with pain processing. This pain of paying is a built-in braking mechanism. The credit card, by contrast, introduces a temporal gap between the pleasure of acquisition and the pain of payment. It numbs the neural pain response. Swiping a piece of plastic or clicking buy now feels like a promise, not a loss. It decouples consumption from consequence, turning a braking mechanism into a mere speed bump. The small balance thrives in this numbed state. It is a consequence deferred, its pain diluted across future statements. This leads directly to the rounding down bias. Our minds are heuristic machines, constantly simplifying complex data. When we see a credit card balance of $4,987, we do not consciously register it as nearly $5,000. We categorize it almost involuntarily as about $4,900 or more insidiously as $4,000 something. We round down to the nearest mental landmark. This bias makes the incremental growth from interest and small purchases psychologically invisible. A balance that grows from $4,987 to $5,041 feels like it has moved from $4,000 something to $5,000 something, a negligible categorical shift, when in reality, it has crossed a significant threshold. This bias is the perceptual camouflage that allows the balance to grow undetected. Compounding this is the optimism bias and the next month myth. This is the deeply held, evidence-defying belief that our future self will be more disciplined, more organized, and wealthier than our present self. I'll pay it off next month, we tell ourselves, projecting a version of ourselves unburdened by the daily fatigues, unexpected expenses, and temptations that define the present. Behavioral economists call this time inconsistency. We systematically overestimate our future capacity for sacrifice. That small balance is the perfect receptacle for this optimism. It feels so manageable in the future that it becomes ignorable in the present. The minimum payment is the enabler of this myth, providing a painless path that keeps the optimistic narrative alive. I'm handling it and I'll finish it soon. Then there is the sunk cost fallacy of payments. After months or years of making payments, a psychological shift occurs. The accumulated total of payments made, the sunk cost, begins to loom large. A person who has paid $2,000 in interest on a $5,000 debt may feel a perverse sense of investment. To stop now, to consider radical action, feels like wasting all those previous efforts. The rational course, to minimize future loss, is overwhelmed by the emotional desire to justify past expenditures. This fallacy can lock individuals into a destructive cycle long after the original utility of the debt has vanished, simply because they have come too far to turn back. Perhaps the most powerful psychological anchor is the minimum payment as a mental benchmark. The statement design is not accidental. The prominent display of the minimum payment establishes it as the suggested, the normal, the expected amount. It becomes the default anchor in our decision-making. Any payment above this amount feels like an extra effort, a virtuous act of sacrifice. This completely inverts the financial reality. In truth, paying only the minimum is an act of extreme financial risk, guaranteeing long-term loss. But psychologically, it is framed as the baseline of responsibility. This anchoring effect is so strong that it can override numerical understanding. Someone may know intellectually they should pay more, but the presented architecture of the statement, with the minimum payment bolded and the total amount due often less visually urgent, steers behavior toward the bank's optimal outcome. Finally, we must consider the avoidance and shame cycle. As a balance persists or grows, it ceases to be a mere number and becomes a source of anxiety. The statement email or envelope becomes a threat cue. The natural human response to persistent anxiety is often avoidance. We delay opening the statement. We ignore the account in our budgeting app. We tell ourselves we'll face it when things are better. This avoidance creates an information vacuum, which is then filled with catastrophic imagination and shame. The debt grows unchecked in the dark, while the psychological burden grows in parallel. This cycle paralyzes action, making the individual less likely to analyze the mechanics or seek a strategy, as we outlined in part 2, because engaging with it requires confronting not just a number, but a personal failing. This is the debt-friendly brain. It is not a character flaw. It is the outcome of ancient neural circuitry navigating a hyper-modern financial trap. The credit system did not create these biases, but it has been refined over decades to trigger them with maximal efficiency. The small balance is the ideal trigger because it is beneath the threshold of triggering our more acute fight-or-flight responses. It activates only our complacency, our optimism, and our knack for simplifying away slow-moving threats. Sarah, our CPA, fell prey not to a lack of intelligence, but to this very wiring. Her rounding down bias made the initial $200 seem trivial. Her optimism bias convinced her the future bonus was a guaranteed solution. The minimum payment served as her anchor, making her strategic partial payment feel responsible. The numbed pain of paying with plastic made the initial spending decision feel inconsequential. Recognizing these patterns is the second great awakening. The first was seeing the engine. The second is seeing the automatic pilot within us that keeps feeding it. It is the realization that the enemy is not just in the terms of service, but in our own hedonic impulses and cognitive shortcuts. This dual knowledge of the external mechanism and the internal vulnerability is what creates the possibility of true agency. It moves us from being a passive participant in a system to becoming an active operator of our own behavior. This is where we move from victim to architect, from passive observer of compounding interest to active demolitions expert. You cannot unilaterally change the bank's terms, but you can rewrite your own rules of engagement with surgical precision. The goal is to introduce friction, create new defaults, and weaponize small amounts of money against the very system designed to absorb them. This is not about willpower. It is about protocol. The foundational mindset shift. Debt as a fire, not a bill. The single most important cognitive reframe is to cease viewing carried credit card debt as a monthly administrative obligation. You must categorize it as a financial fire. A bill is predictable, scheduled, and static. A fire is dynamic, spreading, and consuming. It demands immediate and disproportionate response. You do not pay a fire a minimum monthly fee. You drown it with every available resource until the last ember is extinguished. This shift in mental taxonomy changes everything. It moves debt from the to-be-managed list to the to-be-eliminated with extreme prejudice list. It justifies the temporary austerity and strategic aggression that follows. Tactic 1. The statement balance plus rule, neutralizing the average daily balance. Recall the engine's core mechanism, the average daily balance method. Your primary tactical objective is to collapse this average. Therefore, the standard advice to pay your statement balance by the due date is insufficient if you are carrying any prior debt. Your new protocol is this: pay the current total balance as frequently as possible, ideally weekly, and absolutely no less than once between the statement date and the due date. Here is the execution. The day after your statement generates, log into your account. Do not look at the minimum payment due or even the statement balance. Find the current balance or total balance. This figure includes the statement balance plus any new charges and accrued interest since the statement cut. Pay that entire amount. If you cannot pay the full current balance, pay as far above the statement balance as you possibly can. This action directly attacks the daily compounding engine. By reducing the principal upon which daily interest is calculated immediately, you shrink the mathematical foundation of the debt. This is the single most powerful behavioral override you can implement. Tactic 2. The penny principle, the atomic unit of defense. If you have a revolving credit card balance, you have lost the privilege of using that card for convenience. This is non-negotiable. The penny principle states, you will not add a single new penny of consumption to a card that carries an interest-bearing balance. The logic is mechanical and absolute. As established in Part 2, when you carry a balance, you have forfeited your grace period. Every new purchase begins accruing interest the day it posts. There is no free ride. Therefore, adding a $5 coffee to a $2,000 balance is not a $5 transaction. It is the immediate initiation of a high-interest loan for $5, fused to your existing toxic debt. This principle forces a return to tangible payment methods, cash or debit, for all daily expenses. The psychological pain of paying is reinstated, acting as a natural brake on discretionary spending. It also surgically prevents the enlargement of the principal balance, isolating the enemy you're trying to defeat. Tactic 3. The avalanche in a micro format. Strategic target acquisition. You likely have more than one small balance. The emotional approach is to pay off the smallest balance first for a psychological win, the snowball method. However, to break the algorithm with maximum mathematical efficiency, we employ a micro avalanche. List every debt with an interest-bearing balance. Next to each, write only two numbers, the current balance and the annual percentage rate, APR. Ignore the minimum payment. Your sole focus is the APR. Your target is the balance with the highest APR, regardless of its size. This is the most aggressive vector of your financial fire. This is where the compounding engine runs hottest. You commit to making the minimum payment on all other cards. Every single dollar of extra money you can find, budget surplus, side income, money from sold items, is directed as a ballistic payment toward the highest APR balance. You attack it with relentless focus. The psychological power here is in the clarity of the enemy. You are not vaguely paying down debt. You are on a targeted mission to destroy the number one priority target. When that balance reaches zero, you experience the dual victory of eliminating an account and vanquishing your most expensive interest rate. You then take the total monthly amount you were throwing at that first target, its minimum plus your extra payments, and apply the entire sum to the balance with the next highest APR. This creates a cascading effect of increasing firepower. Tactic 4. The strategic call. The protocol for negotiation. The financial institution views you as a data point in a risk model. You must learn to speak to that model, prepare a script, and make the call. Your tone is not desperate, but factual and resolved. Hello, my name is your name. I'm a customer in good standing for X years. I'm calling today because I'm committed to paying off my balance in full. To help me achieve this faster and ensure the bank is made whole, I am requesting a temporary reduction in my APR. Can you offer a hardship program or a promotional rate to assist me? The key phrases are committed to paying off, customer in good standing, and ensure the bank is made whole. You are presenting yourself as a low-risk, cooperative debtor seeking a mutually beneficial outcome. You are not begging. You are proposing a business efficiency. If the first representative cannot help, politely ask to speak to a retention specialist or a supervisor. A significant percentage of such calls result in a reduced APR for 6 to 12 months. This is not forgiveness. It is disarming the engine's most potent component, the interest rate, temporarily, so your payments can attack the principal directly. The power of the zero balance, securing the beachhead. When you execute these protocols and drive a credit balance to zero, a profound mechanical and psychological reset occurs. Mechanically, the grace period is restored. Future purchases, if you choose to use the card again, will not accrue interest if paid in full by the next due date. The compound engine is disengaged. Psychologically, you have proven to yourself that the algorithm can be broken. You have not just paid off a debt, you have completed a rigorous operational mission. This proof of concept is more valuable than the dollar amount saved. It transforms you from a subject of the system into its operator. This counter strategy is an integrated system. The mindset shift, fire, not bill, justifies the drastic action. The statement balance plus rule attacks the engine's core calculation. The penny principle prevents new fuel from entering the furnace. The micro avalanche directs your finite resources to the point of greatest mathematical danger. The strategic call is a tactical maneuver to lower the enemy's defenses. This is how you stop being fuel and start being the firefighter. But extinguishing the fire is only the beginning. Once the smoke clears, you are left with a blank slate, a cleared field. What you build on that field determines whether this is merely a story of survival or the foundation of a true comeback. We have navigated the dark forest. We have identified the psychological traps, reverse engineered the compound engine, and built the precise protocols to dismantle it. You have reached zero. The statements read dollars due. The The silence is profound. This moment, however, is not an ending. It is a critical, fragile genesis. It is the blank page upon which you must now write a new narrative, one where you are no longer a character reacting to debt, but the author of your own financial sovereignty. This final chapter is about transitioning from defense to offense, from survivor to architect. The most powerful demonstration of your victory is not a credit report. It is a cognitive flip. For months or years, you witnessed the relentless power of compound interest working against you, a silent, draining force. Now you have the opportunity to witness the exact same mathematical law working for you. This is the great inversion. Consider the resources you reallocated. Let us say your dedicated debt extinguishment budget was $300 per month. That $300 was formerly a mandatory tribute to your past, vanishing into the financial ether to cover interest. Now that same $300 is capital, deployed into a broad market index fund with a conservative historical annualized return. That monthly investment begins its own quiet, exponential journey. In 20 years, that consistent $300 monthly investment could grow to a sum exceeding $200,000, assuming a moderate rate of return. The math is identical to the credit cards, but the vector is reversed. You have not merely stopped a leak, you have commandeered the pipeline and redirected the flow toward building your own reservoir. This shift redefines money from a source of anxiety to a tool of creation. Clearing the small balance, Spiral does something far more significant than improve your net worth. It proves to your own psyche that you can diagnose a complex problem, withstand discomfort, execute a long-term plan, and succeed. This proven agency creates a ripple effect that permeates other domains of life. You begin to audit other automatic areas. You might renegotiate your cable bill, your insurance premiums, or your cell phone plan. The skills honed in your strategic call, clarity, resolve, framing a mutually beneficial outcome, become transferable. This often leads to what I term the raise catalyst. Individuals who have successfully navigated their own financial comeback frequently report a newfound confidence in their professional value. They have, after all, managed a significant private turnaround project. This psychological capital emboldens them to pursue a promotion, negotiate a salary increase, or pivot to a more rewarding career. The client who methodically erased $8,000 of manageable debt often finds the courage to ask for and receive a $10,000 raise. They are no longer operating from a scarcity mindset, but from a demonstrated competency in managing complexity and generating results. Having lived through the mechanics and psychology of toxic debt, you develop a permanent immunity. You are now a diagnostic expert. You can look at a buy now, pay later offer at checkout and instantly see it for what it is. A subprime lending product, often with opaque terms and punitive late fees, designed to trigger your present bias. A 0% introductory APR offer is no longer an attractive mystery. It is a contract you scrutinize for the post-introductory rate, the balance transfer fee, and the rules that will cause deferred interest to come crashing down. You see the patterns, the decoupling of pain from payment, the anchoring on low minimums, the complexity designed to obscure true cost. This knowledge is permanent armor. You are no longer a susceptible consumer. You are an informed analyst of financial products. This knowledge carries a moral weight and a profound opportunity. Financial stress is often a silent, shame-laden burden, discussed in hushed tones, if at all. By speaking about your process openly and without shame, focusing on the mechanisms, not the morality, you become a point of light for others. You break the cycle. When a family member complains about never getting ahead or a friend mentions being overwhelmed by statements, you can offer not platitudes, but a blueprint. You can share the concept of the average daily balance, the penny principle, the strategic call. This transforms your experience from a private struggle into a communal asset. In helping others, you solidify your own understanding and commitment, creating a virtuous circle of accountability and growth. I want to leave you with the story of Elena, a member of the Credit Comeback Stories community. Elena had $12,000 across 3 cards, what she called her permanent background stress. She discovered these principles and implemented them with clinical precision. She used the micro-avalanche method, targeted her highest APR card, and made her strategic call, securing a 6-month reprieve on one rate. Within 22 months, she was debt-free. But her story does not end at zero. She then took her $800 monthly debt payment budget and, following the great inversion, split it. $400 went into a dedicated high-yield savings account. $400 continued into her investment portfolio. 30 months after her last credit card payment, she had accumulated a $15,000 down payment for a condominium. The very mathematical force that once imprisoned her, systematic monthly allocation of capital, became the engine of her ownership. When she closed on her home, she sent a note that read, "I didn't just buy a house. I bought back every single month of my future." We started this journey with a $3 cup of coffee and the terrifying arithmetic of its potential future. We have ended with the architecture of a down payment, a raise, a legacy. This progression, from victim of compound interest to master of it, is the essence of every true comeback story. It is the movement from being written by your circumstances to writing your own script. This is the mission of Credit Comeback Stories. On this channel, we move beyond theory into lived execution. We feature video diaries of community members implementing the penny principle in real time. We conduct live strategy sessions, breaking down statements and calculating the true cost of minimum payments. We provide templated scripts for the strategic call and interactive spreadsheets for the micro-avalanche method. We deconstruct financial product offers in real time, building that immune system together. If this narrative has resonated with you, if you have felt the shock of recognition at the hidden mechanics or the surge of possibility at the counter strategies, then you understand why this community exists. Your insight is the first critical step. Subscribe to Credit Comeback Stories and activate notifications. Because next week we are dissecting the multi-billion-dollar credit repair industry. We will expose the one simple legal document you can file yourself, absolutely free, that these companies charge hundreds to process. It is information they prefer you not to possess. I invite you to join the comeback community below. Begin by declaring your intention. Share one small balance or financial habit you are committing to confronting this month. Your first public declaration is a powerful act of authorship. Your story, your questions, and your victories will inspire the next person's comeback. Your past is a statement. Your present is a balance. But your future? That is a portfolio, a property deed, a legacy. It is entirely in your hands. Let us go write that comeback story together.